Hi everyone, this is Balázs from RB's Gadget Reviews. Today's set is on the market for some time now, and it was a long adventure for me to finish this review. This is the C61042W Italian Supercar from CaDA. This set was designed by Bruno Jensen. The box is really nice. We can see some design elements from the supercar on the top and on the sides. The car itself is revealed on the back. As you see, this is a 1/8 scale model, and it will be remote controlled out of the box. Now let's see what's inside. The special design and packaging continues here as well. We get 6 numbered boxes, and below them the manuals with a sticker sheet. Here are the 6 separate manuals, the sticker sheet and an extra instruction set for the electronic parts. In the manual we see an introduction by Bruno. He designed several great LEGO MOCs in the past years, but this time his design was released as a set by CaDA. We get some instructions for the battery box and the remote, then about the usage of the brick separator, and the guideline for the manuals and the numbered bags. I have to confess this was not super clear for me for the first sight, but apparently there are letters in front of the steps in the manual that will indicate for you which box or bag number you have to use. But it's not that simple, as you start with box number 1, but you also need to open box number 6. That one contains numbered and unnumbered bags, as I found out you need to open the unnumbered ones and use them along the build. These are the most common pieces with different pins and axles. If you take a look at those parts, almost everything is black. I know that some expert builders prefer this as there won't be any outstanding colors in the build, but if you don't separate the pieces like I did at the very beginning, then it would be almost impossible to find the piece you are looking for since everything is black. I'm wondering how challenging it will be during the building. I won't show you the whole build in details, but I will share some moments from box 1 to highlight a few things. Now let's start. The steps require some attention, as a lot of things might happen on the same page and the black on black pieces are not that easy to follow. It is definitely advised to collect first the parts for the specific step to make sure nothing was missed. The sub-assemblies are coded. This is actually pretty useful when you need to put them together. But the more simple ones have the same code, so despite having 2 pieces they don't get a different code and it can be confusing for the first sight. So here is the build after the first 22 steps. As you see, almost everything is black on black. Definitely not an easy build. The next step is interesting. I had to look it twice to make sure I get it right. As you see, this piece has to go here, but the part next to it is half stat higher, so it just sort of hangs here. This building technique could not be used in an official LEGO set for sure. Part quality is good in most of the cases, but there are some exceptions. Apparently the size variation of the pieces is higher than it's supposed to be. Here is the piece with the cross-axle hole, for example. If I insert the gray part from this direction, then it is held there properly, but if I insert it from the other side, it simply falls out. There are some pretty cool and complex connection angles here. Hope to see more of these. And yes, we get many more. Just look at all the things going on in the front section. The design is pretty impressive so far. At this step though, I have some trouble with the front grille. I cannot really position it in any way without stressing the part. It fits and stays in place, but the tension is visible. At this step I have to install the servo motor, but I was confused for a second as it was not in box 1. Had to go back to the beginning to check it. They are actually in box 5. This is the servo motor. Make sure to check if it is centered before building it in, as it would be pretty difficult to put it in the correct position later on. There's a dedicated section highlighting this in the manual. The assembly of the front axle and the steering is almost finished. This is the point where the steering rack is added. It is not highlighted in the manual, but you need to make sure again that the motor is centered and the rack is also centered, otherwise your car will not go straight. And this is where the 2 main sections built so far are joined together, end of box 1. So I only built the model myself until this point, as I wanted to do an experiment. There are always tons of complaints in case of LEGO sets about the colorful inner structure and the color coding of the pieces in general. I think I can say that I have lots of experience with LEGO Technic sets, but the monochrome interior of this set really bothered me. It simply makes the building process very challenging. So I wanted to know how difficult would it be for someone with less experience. My family members do build LEGO occasionally, even Technic. My father built the Leaper more than 1 time, so I asked them to complete the build. Based on their feedback, this build was way more frustrating and challenging to assemble than a regular LEGO build. The number 1 complaint was the lack of color coding for the pins. They regularly made mistakes because they either could not identify the correct pin in the manual or they simply picked up the wrong one. Another issue was the complexity of the manual. It was quite a challenge to follow at some places. They still admired certain design solutions that I will show in a minute. So, this matches with my opinion. LEGO's color coding exists for a reason. I understand if someone prefers this version where literally everything is black inside, but it's not convenient for a casual builder. Now let's see the end result. As you might have guessed, this was supposed to be a mock of a Ferrari, but for obvious reasons CaDA does not have the license, so there is no rendering. I have to state that the overall look is very impressive, the bodywork and the paneling all around looks great. The area starting behind the rear wheels with the door and this line above the rear wheels with all the panels at different crazy angles is amazing, especially considering the sturdy build of these sections. One of the main highlights of the set is the door mechanism. It has a working handle and a locking mechanism, which is quite a feat. The interior is also nice and detailed, although the seats have sections that flap around easily. Would have been nice to have them fixed. The hood opens. This is where you can find the CaDA rechargeable battery box that has 4 connectors. 2 motors are used for drive, 1 for steering, and we have lights at the front and at the back. The engine cover also opens, although it's more like a symbolic cover. There's a nicely decorated V8 engine at the rear. I really like the custom tires. The chrome wheels are not exactly my style, but might fit the taste of the target audience. Since this is an RC set, let's turn on the battery box and connect the remote. The remote is the usual CaDA one, 2 levers and 4 buttons. None of the controls are proportional, unfortunately. The car has a remotely controlled sequential transmission, and it even has moving pedal shifters behind the steering wheel that also rotates, of course. Again, very impressive. 2 rear buttons control the front and rear lights. Too bad you need to hold them, so it's not a toggle button, but that's the limitation of the system, I guess. The other 2 buttons control the gearbox. The speed of the engine does not change, and honestly I did not really see much difference in the speed of the car either. The RC system built in the car is very impressive from a technological standpoint, but the gearbox itself does not add much to the play experience. Now a bit about the stuff I don't really like. There are many details built with system bricks, which is a nice addition, but most of it is very fragile. Things fall off simply by looking at them, and don't forget this is an RC car, so you will bump into obstacles and you will lose a lot of parts on the front and especially at the rear around the diffuser. The quality inconsistency of the CaDA parts is also something worth to mention. Some pieces have less grip than they're supposed to have, certain parts fall off or fall apart very easily. I also found these pieces under the car. Apparently some parts have a tendency to break by themselves. The car was sitting in a box assembled for several months, so there was no sunlight or any stress during playing that could affect the pieces. Color consistency is also problematic with certain pieces. I know LEGO is also fighting with this, but apparently other companies have similar challenges as well. So, what is my conclusion? Well, it's complicated. First of all, as a custom brick-built supercar design, it is very impressive. There are great building techniques here and there that are definitely worth to study. But at the same time, I don't think it should be remote controlled. An RC car should be way sturdier than this construction. It is nice as a display piece, but things will constantly fall off if you try to drive it around. It's also quite complex as a build, and with the usage of these single-colored pieces, it is definitely not for everyone. One of the most frequent complaints I read about the LEGO Ferrari 488 was that you could get this set for a similar price, and how this one is superior in every aspect. Well, it is really a more complex design with more parts and it's RC as well, but I highly doubt everyone who enjoys building that LEGO set could also build this one without any challenges. As I said, this set is not for everyone. Experienced supercar builders might find joy in it, but it's definitely not for the casual car fans. And from a quality perspective, CaDA still have room for improvement. The variation in part quality is still noticeable. It needs to be better and more consistent, even if it means it would be somewhat more expensive. So, please let me know what you think about the set in the comments. Make sure to subscribe if you like the content. See you next time. Bye bye.